David DePape is convicted on both counts at his federal trial, including attempted kidnapping of a federal official. The Congresswoman wasn't home at the time.
The government proved DePape went to Nancy Pelosi's home prepared for violence and armed with a hammer told Paul Pelosi he would take the punishment instead, along with videos showing DePape breaking in and lunging at Pelosi right in front of police. The evidence included his own confession that he targeted Nancy Pelosi because she was, quote, the leader of the pack of lies, and that he'd break her kneecaps to teach other members of Congress a lesson.
Fox's Claudia Cowan in San Francisco. DePape faces 50 years in prison on the federal convictions and still faces a state trial on charges including attempted murder. Breaking college football news. Michigan says a settlement is reached in a sign-stealing probe involving coach Jim Harbaugh, who will accept a 3-game suspension from the Big Ten Conference, and the conference will end its investigation. The settlement resolves the school's lawsuit against the league. After back-to-back rallies, the Dow down 45 points at the bell. America is listening to Fox News.
With the holidays upon us, the increase in traveling, shopping, and connecting online also heightens the need to protect your identity and finances with LifeLock. Identity thieves see this time of year as an opportunity to drain your accounts, open new loans in your name, and damage your financial future. LifeLock detects and alerts you to the threats you might miss on your own. Don't let the busy holiday season catch you off guard. Save up to 25% off your first year with promo code CLAY. LifeLock.com, promo code CLAY.
Did you know you can get your prescriptions for less at your local pharmacy? You can with GoodRx. It's the free app that can save you money on your medications. Just search for your prescription, choose the pharmacy and the price that works best for you, and then show your GoodRx coupon to your pharmacist at the drop-off counter. GoodRx works at over 70,000 pharmacies, including Walmart, Rite Aid, and Walgreens, and it works whether you have insurance or not. It's easy to save. Next time you drop off your prescription, check GoodRx. To start saving today, go to GoodRx.com. GoodRx is not insurance.
House Republicans will try again to expel a Republican, freshman New York Representative George Santos, after the results of an ethics probe.
Ethics Committee Chairman Michael Guest, in his first comments since announcing his intentions to expel Congressman George Santos, says his position and involvement in the investigation makes him the right person to file the resolution.
Who knows the investigation, knows the content of what is in the report, and someone who is offering it with no political motives.
Guest says the committee found substantial evidence Santos used campaign funds for personal use. Santos responding by saying the committee is biased and, quote, went to extraordinary lengths to smear myself and my legal team. Guest will file the expulsion resolution tomorrow. In Washington, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
Santos now says he will not seek a second term. He already faces a 23-count federal indictment. It's about to get easier to buy a car on Amazon, which is joining forces with Hyundai.
The e-commerce giant and the South Korean automaker are partnering, and starting next year, Hyundai will be the first vehicle brand available for customers to purchase on Amazon's website. Over the years, Amazon has slowly powered its way into the car buying business by launching a digital showroom for shoppers to research and compare vehicles, but not buy them directly through its site. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy said the partnership with Hyundai will change the ease with which customers can buy vehicles online. As part of the deal, Hyundai will also include Amazon's Alexa voice assistant in its cars starting in 2025.
Fox's Hillary Barsky. Another delay for SpaceX, postponing the second launch of the world's biggest rocket, Starship, to Saturday instead of tomorrow. CEO Elon Musk says they need to replace a part related to steering for the return to Earth. Recapping stocks, the Dow drops 45 points, the S&P and the Nasdaq higher. Lisa Brady, Fox News.
Make plans to pop into Pia's at 1609 West Springfield Avenue for happy hour from 3 to 6, Monday through Friday with 16-ounce drafts, just $3.25. Well drinks, $4. Taco Tuesdays, get you big tacos for $2.50. $2 off on tequila shots and margaritas, $5. Get Mexican beers for $4 each. Go south of the border on Tuesdays at Pia's. Then there's Whiskey Wednesdays and karaoke a few times a month on Fridays with $4 Fireball shots. Pia's is the place to party any day of the week.
By now, you've all heard the expression, when you turn the key and the car won't run, call 367-9481 for PDR Automotive. They are what's best for your truck or car. They are PDR. But who are they? They, the PDR staff, understand that a name is only as good as the people that represent it. The PDR staff has more than 335 years of combined automotive experience. Several employees now on staff for more than 25 years. PDR, more than just a name. Family owned and operated, now celebrating over 50 years in business. Saturday, November 18th for one night only at the Virginia Theater. Come out to the red carpet world movie premiere of the family-friendly comedy Irresponsible, starring Keith Campton. Parts of the movie filmed right here in our town and features dozens of local actors. Come and meet all the stars of the movie and ask questions, get pictures, and free autographs. Doors open at 6 p.m., showtime at 7. Virginia Theater, November 18th. For more information, go to thevirginia.org, thevirginia.org.
In terms of those kind of questions that could be directed at him, he put a stop to that today by saying that.
He did. Now, does it put a stop to the questions about the Buffalo Bills?
No.
Nope. You fired your coordinator. Your quarterback can't keep turn the ball over to the other team the way that he has, at the pace that he has. They got a lot of issues up in Buffalo. The 12th man on the field for the game-winning field goal. I mean, just the way that they blew that game was difficult to watch. Just from a football perspective, I want to see good football. And there was just so much bad football out there for the Buffalo Bills. The Broncos should not apologize for getting the win, but they certainly were lucky in that ball game. But for Stephon Diggs, yes, to your point, Freddie, and to what I said earlier, I think he handled that about as well as you possibly could, balancing the very tricky words of his brother versus defending his family. Great job by him.
By the chat, Brandon, for Harry Delkus, joining me, Freddie Coleman, on Freddie and Harry on ESPN Radio. Enter the chat on the Dr. Pepper call-in line at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Do the Buffalo Bills still make the playoffs? Will the Buffalo Bills still make the playoffs? We want to hear from you one way or the other. NY, 888-729-3776. Yeah, a lot of people worried about that right now, and I firmly believe if they don't beat the New York Jets on Sunday, they are not going to make the playoffs. And that falls at the feet of not Stephon Diggs, maybe not even so much Sean McDermott, their head coach, or the new offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. It's going to be on Josh Allen. Now, Joe Brady says, I'm the new OC, but I still got an elite quarterback.
Give me Josh Allen all day, every day. I'm not worried about it. When I look in his eyes before every game, there's not a worry in my mind. And I guarantee you that's the same mindset of everybody in this locker room. I believe Josh Allen's the best quarterback in the NFL. It excites me that I get an opportunity to call plays with him because I feel like you can look down at the play call and whatever you call Josh Allen is going to find a way to make it work. And there's a lot of confidence in that.
Attaboy, Joe Brady. Support your dude. It's one thing to say, I'm glad to have Josh Allen on my side. Chad Brown, not Joe Brady. He says not only is he elite, he's the best quarterback in the National Football League. The only thing missing from that were donuts and coffee because he knew exactly how to sweeten that whole thing. Hey, Josh Allen, don't pay attention to what people are saying about you. We still believe in you. I know Josh Allen has belief in himself. I don't think he even questioned if people in that building had a lack of belief in him. But the fact that Joe Brady says, I don't know what happened before. I was in the room, but I wasn't making the decisions. I know what I'm going to do for you because I know you're still a Josh Allen that is an elite quarterback and will be an elite quarterback once again, no matter what people outside of this building are saying about you.
11 interceptions. I think that says something as well. So while Joe Brady was great to come out there and defend his quarterback and say, this is a guy who I can call any play on the play sheet for, I would respectfully
Hello again, everyone. Let's check weather for East Central Illinois, Champaign and Van vicinity. Enjoy the last vestiges of this mild November setup. It's back to reality beginning tomorrow and into the weekend, and signs of an even colder air mass building in behind a rain system for next week. In the meantime, partly cloudy, breezy, mild again for the day today, up to 67. That south wind on the increase of 12 to 24 and gusty. We'll bottom out tonight with a mild November night. Little rain after midnight, too, low down to 51. Tomorrow, much cooler, little rain in the morning, then a partly sunny afternoon with a high to about 56 degrees. Clearing off, much colder tomorrow night, more typical, low down to 27. Mostly sunny, cooler for the day on Saturday up to 51. Partly cloudy, 54 on Sunday. They'll be probably close to 50, or at least upper 40s for football out in Iowa on Saturday. Then Monday into Tuesday, rain breaks out. Highs at 51 on Monday, into the 40s. That's it for highs on Tuesday. Wednesday and towards Thanksgiving Day, high temperatures barely to 40 degrees. For Stephen J. Broadcasting, I'm meteorologist Greg Soldier.
Hey, what's up? It's The Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Derek Piper, Kyle Tosk. We're going to get right to our buddy. He's on the Tapman's Towing phone line. We'll mention here in a little while that the streak has continued, Kyle, but in the meantime...
We can't overlook that.
We cannot.
No.
We cannot. Luke Goody is on the Tapman's Towing phone line. This segment brought to you by a handful of great sponsors: Max Twin City Recycling, Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, First Federal Savings Bank, Crossroads Contractor Supply, Brian Hansen at State Farm Insurance, and also Carpenters Local 243. Joining us now, the sharpshooter for Illini basketball, Luke Goody. Luke, how you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
What'd you learn? It was a big-time game over there at State Farm Center on Tuesday, number 4 in town. It was a tight game, obviously went down to the end, and you had a nice performance yourself. But overall, what'd you take away from that one?
Yeah, I thought we played well for most of the game. Marquette's a really good team, and they're ranked in the top 5 for a reason. So they came in and they hit shots. Credit to their point guard. He had a great game. Preseason All-American, living up to the hype. But, I think that's the game that we look back on and we figure out our mistakes and what went wrong. But we look at it, with a hopeful idea, in our heads that we played that game good, and we just take it and learn from it and move on.
Before we dive in more on your performance and the team as a whole, Tyler Kolek, you mentioned there, first-team All-American. How tough was he in terms of what he brought to the table? And maybe, you've been on this squad now for a handful of years. Where does I know this is a tough question to ask you on the spot, where does he kind of stack up in your mind as far as some of the opponents you've gone up against?
Yeah, he's pretty impressive. I heard that the game before, too, he got hurt and messed up his ankle pretty bad and played in our game when most games he probably wouldn't have played in. So all credit to him. He was a great player. Since I've been here, though, I played against some really good players.
Mm-hmm.
The Murray brothers at Iowa, those guys are elite, and Benedict Mathurin and a bunch of the Big Ten guys, EJ Liddell. There's so many names. Malachi Branham.
Right.
So many names that good names that we played against that stack up. But he's definitely a great player, and he's going to have a great career at the next level.
Yeah, and still some Zach Edey dude you're going to see at some point down the road, too. He's pretty
exactly,
good.
Yeah.
As far as you go, though, career high, you hit 4 threes. That was huge, obviously. You and Marcus, 3-point shooting in the first half, keeping you guys in that ball game. What'd you see out of yourself to be able to step up and knock down those shots, which were big for you guys on that night?
Yeah, it's just opportunities and confidence, honestly. My teammates put me in a great opportunity to make shots. We really got the ball moving in the first half. I was able to get a couple clean looks just to get going, and then after that I kind of was able to create myself and do my own thing and just play through the system. So, when you hit your first shot and get going in the offense early, it's easier to get in a groove and kind of have a feel for the game. So after I knocked down that first one, I was kind of confident throughout the rest of the game, and my teammates knew to find the hot hand.
We've seen through the years that corner three can be obviously a really quality shot, and if you go back a handful of years, obviously Io being able to get downhill, and it seems like when opponents have to cheat off those corners, Terrence now with his downhill ability, is that something where you kind of know that teams are going to do what they have to do to try to clog that lane up, and that corner can in particular be a spot that is a soft spot in the defense, can be a nice place to spot up and get those opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, all teams do stuff differently, and it goes by scout and where they help from and their tags and all the stuff like that off ball. But when you have multiple guards that can get downhill and create themselves, it shrinks the floor. And me being able to spread the floor, it's tough for the defense. They got to pick and choose because, that help defender, Terrence, is going to get by his man, Ty's going to get by his man, and they're going to have to make a decision whether to go help on the ball or to stay out with me. So it's really a double-sided sword with TJ getting downhill. He's going to finish the ball if they don't help, and if not, then he's going to throw it outside to me or Marcus, some of our shooters to get that shot.
Luke Goody is our guest on the Tapman's Towing phone line. As it got into the latter portions of the second half, I know it was tough for you guys to offensively continue it on. I think it was 2 for your last 16, had some turnovers mixed in there. Was there anything as you went back and evaluated it that stood out in terms of why things were tough to execute down the stretch, or was it just a situation of making some mistakes and missing shots?
Yeah, I think Marquette deserves a little bit of credit. They played some good defense in the second half of the second half. I feel like they really locked into what they were doing. But then it's also us. People want to talk about how old we are and how experienced we are, but we haven't really played together much, and you got to take that into account. We got a bunch of old guys that have played college basketball for a long time, but you bring in Marcus, who's new and hasn't been in the system. You bring in Quincy and all those other guys, the 2 freshmen that are getting big minutes. It's tough, and obviously that's going to get better throughout the season. But I think this game it was a big learning curve for all of us, and I think we're going to do a great job taking what we learned from it. Being able to trust each other and move on from it.
Marcus, you mentioned him there. 18 points for him. He got it going from 3, and also we know he can score inside the arc as well. Nice turnaround jump shot is something that he's flashed here early. What did you notice about him in that game and what he can be for you guys going forward?
Yeah, that's just been him since he's been on campus. He's been the dynamic scorer that he was last game. He's always been able to kind of get downhill, create for himself, and come off ball screens, make the right decisions, and he just found that 3-ball last game. So credit to him. He's been shooting the cover off the ball in practice, and we're excited to keep getting in the ball, keep letting him score and stuff, help out our team.
Is there a particular area, something that Brad is wanting to address here in the last couple of days, coming off that Marquette game, and as you guys push forward?
Yeah, we took one day to kind of go over the Marquette game, which was yesterday, and recap everything, and let's move on now. We have two mid-major teams coming in here this weekend. Pretty close turnaround or quick turnaround after the Friday game to play a Southern team, and we have a Valparaiso team coming in here with a former Illinois player as their head coach, so they're coming in here with a little extra to prove. I think that's something to take into account, and we got to be ready. So we've moved on completely from that game, and we've turned our focus to these next couple.
I know that Brad has mentioned, offensive rebounding, second chance points, something that his teams have always done really well through the years, and he's still wanting a little bit more out of this squad on that front. I know you had, in particular, a couple of offensive rebounds in that last game. As a team, what's key to maybe getting more production in that particular area?
Yeah, I think it's key because it opens up more opportunities to score the ball. When guys aren't getting as many looks within the system, it's easier to get looks when you go offensive rebound. I was able to get an offensive rebound and I'll put back and get sent to the line, and otherwise that possession I wouldn't have gotten the ball. So I think it's one of those things that if guys want to be selfish and get their stats up, they just got offensive rebound, and that's really what it is, because not only does it help the team and get you extra possessions and get you more opportunities, but it also helps yourself. So I think that's something that we have to look at in more of a selfish way, and just kind of tell yourself, like, if I want to score and get these stats, this is how I do it.
Like you said, Roger Powell coming in, former Illini, part of that 04-05 team, D. Brown, Darren Williams and company. How old were you for that squad, Luke? Is that even something that was on your radar? Were you too young at that point?
Yeah, I was too young. I was 3 years old when he was playing for the Illini, so I was pretty young.
Making everybody out there that does remember that feel a little bit old, obviously. Valpo, is there anything that, as you guys have dove into them as a team, that stands out, that's something you guys maybe will have to really lock in on as far as what they do or what strengths they have?
Yeah, they have a couple good wing scorers that can really score the ball. Jackson Edwards Edwards actually is from Indianapolis. I grew up playing against him and played against him a bunch in high school, so I'm pretty familiar with his game, and he's had a good season so far. So they got a couple guys that can really go. We just got to neutralize those guys, and they have a freshman foreman that's pretty good, pretty skilled, and we have to make sure that those guys can't affect the game to be able to beat us. So we got to come out ready to go and use our game plan and everything like that to keep those guys under wraps.
2 basketball games for you guys this weekend, Friday and then Sunday. Sandwiched in between there, a big football game over there in Iowa City. I'm sure you'll be tuning in for that. What are your thoughts on this Illini squad that's got some things going here recently? They've been a fun team to keep tabs on of late. What do you think about that matchup in Iowa City?
Yeah, it's pretty cool to watch what they're doing right now. They're definitely turned it around, got a couple big dubs, and I just saw something about Iowa's best player being hurt, and I know Iowa doesn't give up many points, and Illinois has been scoring a lot of points lately. So I'm predicting a pretty big win for the Illini on Saturday. I think they go in there and take care of business, and I think they still have a chance to win the Big Ten West, or stay at least, don't they? If Iowa loses a couple times and they win out. So with that opportunity and the way that we're playing football without their best defensive player, who's I'm pretty sure going to be a big-time draft pick, I think we got a good chance.
Yeah, it should be fun, and still mathematically a chance if you can get some help, and obviously you can help yourself going there and beating Iowa and then taking care of business in the finale against Northwestern. A lot of basketball for you guys coming up, too, this weekend. You got another one the week of Thanksgiving as well. So, Luke, we'll look forward to catching up with you next week. Best of luck this weekend, and congrats on a really nice performance against Marquette. And obviously we will look forward to you keeping it rolling.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. It's nice to talk to you guys again.
You as well. Luke Goody on the Tapman's Towing phone line. That segment brought to you by Max Twin City Recycling, Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, your home's best friend, First Federal Savings Bank, local and trusted, Crossroads Contractor Supply, the right tools when you need it, Brian Hansen at State Farm Insurance. Visit brianismyguy.com, and Carpenters Local 243. Let's bring back in my co-host, Kyle Tosk. What'd you think of what Luke had to say? Obviously, you have to be in a situation as much as you can maybe nitpick and say, hey, if a couple of plays go differently, Illinois could have come out with that win. But it is encouraging the way that Luke shot the ball. We put a lot of emphasis on three-point shooting with this team and how, on the whole, it's still a question mark. But when him and Marcus are able to get those shots to go, I mean, that can be a big asset for this team, and it definitely was in that first half.
Yeah, I just want to start first off. You noticed that a voice was missing in that interview. I mean, we gotta mention real quick. I mean,
was it yours?
No, another week. Another week of Monte is not here for one of the days during the week.
I feel like he's doing it purposefully now. He's like trying to keep the streak.
He wants this to happen. He wants to make it a full calendar year without working a full week or something. I mean, he's chugging along at that goal if that's what he's aiming at.
He is that veteran catcher who is getting like every day game off within the middle of a week. Yeah,
he's the definition of load management in the NBA. I mean, he's the typical NBA player who everybody
gets mad at Kawhi Leonard, and Lon is establishing himself as one of those. So
to go back to your question, I thought Luke was great on Tuesday night, and Luke and Marcus together, really, when you think about kind of the skill sets that each of those guys bring. I mean, they needed that shooting, and we saw how reliant they were, much to the detriment of them quite often when they take 33 of 63s. That's not something I love to see, but when the shots are coming from those two guys, particularly a guy like Luke and the quality of looks that he got, I'm fine with him taking 7 threes every night, because I think he can really be a spark on offense, and I thought he was great. And but yeah, I just think coming off that game, they got to figure some things out on offense. That's really the story, and I know Luke alluded to some of the issues there down the stretch, but that's the biggest takeaway from that game is late game offense, and maybe that involves Luke being on the court, because he's a guy that when things break down, try to get inside and find him in the corner, and that he's going to be reliable and can knock a shot down for you. Maybe that's one of the solutions, but whatever it is, I think you just got to get that figured out down the stretch, because I just the late game possessions were brutal, and that was the difference in the game to me, was that Marquette's possessions were very quality down the stretch. Illinois' weren't, and they just didn't have a go-to guy and a go-to option.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about possibly setting up some set plays, Luke's a guy you can run off a couple of screens, and obviously if you have him and Marcus in at the same time, now there can be some matchups against some more, let's just call it what it is, more athletic teams that can be something that you got to evaluate as far as the give and take there with what they're going to be presented with defensively. But those are two knockdown shooters. At least we know Luke has established himself as that. I was pulling up his career numbers right before the show. I mean, he's now a 41% career shooter from beyond the arc. He's 7 for 14 this year, 50%. Knocked down 3 threes against Eastern, 4 against Marquette. Great to have him get that confidence. And it was very, very necessary. There was not a lot going for Illinois offensively, especially, throughout the night, it was really 3 guys. It was Luke, Marcus, and Terrence. And especially, I've brought it up a number of times, that first half, without Marcus and Luke putting in those threes, Illinois is in a world of hurt, which fortunately those guys were able to step up in that. But, yeah, no, I think it's a good point in terms of having him out there in those moments. We know that he's a good free throw shooter as well, so that's something that and I think you can also couple it with, I believe, Luke is a guy that's going to mix it up on the glass. When he's out there, I think he is going to go and try to get those effort plays. I mean, he ripped one out of Tyler Kolek's hands one time underneath Marquette's basket, trying to make sure that was not going to be an offensive rebound for Marquette. So I liked how Luke looked.
He had an offensive rebound of his own where he got to the free throw line as well early in the first half, I remember. So, he's a guy, you know what you're getting from Luke every time out there. You really do. And there's certain matchups, like we saw against Kansas, there's certain matchups that he might struggle with, especially if you're playing bigger front courts and you're trying to squeeze him in there at the 4.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some matchups that maybe he's a little bit more limited, but I think there's going to be a lot of times where you want to have his presence, his steadiness, and his ability to just make a shot, because there's so many times where it just feels like they're taking a lot of shots, they're not going in. I think more often than not, if you give Luke a quality look from 3, especially in the corner, he's going to come through and make those at a pretty high clip, at least comparatively to the rest of most of these guys. And Marcus the same way. It's an interesting thought. I'm curious to see. I'm hoping we're not going to see crunch time close games against Valpo, Western Illinois, and Southern.
Shouldn't.
But once we get into that early December stretch, I'm curious to see some adjustments that are maybe made there, and just going to be an ongoing process offensively with this team. I'm not saying that it's, I saw one game against a really good Marquette team and they struggled down the stretch, so that's it. They're going to be awful offensively and it's never going to get corrected. I think they can. They've got pieces to do that, but that remains my biggest takeaway from Tuesday, is that you just got to figure something else out coming down the stretch of games. And maybe that's just guys that were actually on the court making better decisions for you, because that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, there were a lot of bad decisions made in the final 11 minutes, turnovers, bad shot selection. And I think that Luke is one of those guys I would trust with the ball. He's had some moments where he's turned it over. I think it was the Kansas game. He had a couple of bad ones, but for the most part, he seems to be pretty sure-handed and a guy that is going to be in the right spots doing the right thing. So glad to see that he was able to have that kind of performance, and hopefully it's something that he can continue to build on. On the note of the volume of threes,
oh, goodness,
I do want to bring this up because I thought it was an interesting comment by Brad Underwood today. We'll play his full press conference, I believe, tomorrow. We're going to do Brett Bielema's today. We're going to talk to...
I can try to play the clip of him, of the one you're about to get to here.
Okay. Sean Bach, Hawkeye Insider, to break down Iowa coming up here later this hour. We're going to be joined by him to preview the game between Illinois and Iowa this weekend, as well as I want his thoughts. I know that Sean does a lot on the hoops side, so I want to get his take on what Fran McCaffrey's team has looked like so far, and just overall thoughts on a squad that lost some pieces. Obviously, Chris Murray is a big one. Philip Bracha, they had to replace that front court in particular. So I'll be interested to hear, I should say, what he has to say about what he expects out of Iowa on the basketball side. But you have the clip ready. Brad had a quote about the amount of threes, 33 of them against Marquette, and I think the answer as far as his evaluation on that might surprise you a little bit. So Brad Underwood from today.
I got the question post-game, did we shoot too many threes? I wish we would have shot more. We shot 33, 34%, and man, we had some really good looks. We missed too many layups, we didn't play with enough pace offensively. One thing Marquette did was play with great pace, but that allows them to get their angles. We did that in the Kansas exhibition, played with great pace. We got to get back to that.
43s maybe? Is that what Brad wants? Instead of 33?
I mean, he said multiple times in the offseason that he wanted to take less and he wanted to be less reliant.
He did, yeah.
Really makes me curious where this is coming from today. Because I'll be honest with you, like, a lot of the looks they got, I don't want to say, I don't want to say all of them, but a good amount of the looks they got from three were pretty good, I thought, in that game. I didn't necessarily have an issue. I didn't feel like the biggest issue offensively was guys were just chucking threes on Tuesday. I thought a lot of the looks they got, Luke took 7 of them, Marcus took 7 of them, and obviously you trust Terrence. He can pull up and make some of those shots. Some of the ones he made were huge. Quincy had some wide open ones he didn't make. Dre had a couple open ones that he didn't make. So I didn't totally have an issue with the shot selection in that game, but I still just think that there's a tendency for this team to just fall back into that trap of being so reliant from three. I think the beginning of the game was really apparent in that, where you brought it up yesterday, 9 of the first 13 shot attempts were from three. And again, and knowing the opponent, knowing the scouting report, like, this is a Marquette team that doesn't have a lot of rim protection, was bad at defending the paint last year. Terrence Shannon, just go. Just go. If you turn it over a couple times, it's fine. Just go. Dre, get in there. We know how athletic you are. Get to the bucket. Penetrate inside. And then if you get open threes off of that, that's fine. I just, more than 50% of their shots are threes. I didn't think necessarily they took a ton of terrible ones in that game, but there's just no way that you can tell me you want to take more than 54% threes for this team that we've seen for a year and 3 games now is not very good at making threes.
They're not, no. And still in the season, they're shooting 31% from three, which is below average. They shot 32 of them in the opener against Eastern. They hit 10 of them. If you're gonna shoot 30+ and you make double digits, you can live with those numbers. But I don't know that I would have necessarily thought, hey, what they could have used is actually more 3-point shots. That was not the way I saw it. If Brad is looking at the context of, well, we shot 10 for 27 inside the arc, and knowing what we shot from three, then the math says, well, it makes more sense to have taken more of those threes if we were going to shoot that poorly from 2. I think the thing that, I don't know, Brad, we don't have him on the line here to fully explain this quote and way of thinking, but I would say I wanted more downhill action, more, you look at 44 to 20 points in the paint. Even though Illinois didn't shoot it well from 2, I would say we should have shot it better from 2. We should have made more layups. We should have got to the free throw line more. Only 13 free throw attempts against Marquette. And yes, I know Oso Ighodaro was sitting there in the paint as a rim protector, but not a guy. I mean, based on I've beat the drum to heck as far as the Golden Eagles last year being dead last in the Big East in 2-point field goal defense. You had an ability, I think, to drive your man, and if he comes over to help, that's usually a nice dump-off pass to a big man. I know that's not really maybe Coleman Hawkins' game to spot up around the basket, but still, I think that was something that Illinois...
Add it to your game, man. I mean, you get so many easy buckets.
No doubt.
Especially if you're starting at the 5 next to Terrence Shannon, who's going to draw a lot of gravity when he gets to his left hand. Add it to your game. Don't tell me that it's not part of your game is rolling to the basket and getting easy buckets, around the rim. I don't know. In general, I think that is the stat. That was the stat of the game for me. 44-20 in the paint is just, that should never happen with this roster. You look up and down this roster, you should never lose the paint battle by 24. When we talk all about how this team is predicated on all the size they have in their starting lineup, all the physicality they have, the depth in the front court. Like, there's just no way you should be getting outscored in the paint by 24 points against a Marquette team that coming in. I know that was part of Illinois' strategy, and that always is under Brad, is limit the three-point line, force them into twos. But that was a stat of the game for me. That can't happen. You can't expect to win with this roster build and this roster makeup, scoring 20 points in the paint, giving up 44.
Yeah, I agree. I know Tim says, what other shot can you get when they're running the 5-out offense and nobody cuts? Same issue as last year. They do need more off-the-ball movement. And I definitely agree with that. Even if it's not some people like to talk about, and I think that it's warranted to wonder about structure of an offense. Is there cuts that are designed within that offense? Are they running, okay, we're going to pass it to the right wing, the left wing is going to cut down the lane? It doesn't necessarily have to be so predetermined and dictated. It can be these field-based plays, which we praised Illinois coming off of the Kansas game. There was nothing within the design of a play that had Justin Harmon cut down the lane when Coleman Hawkins had the ball in the mid-post. It was a field play, a veteran play that he made, and Coleman made a good pass, and that was a key late bucket against Kansas. Illinois has needed more of those type of plays to be able to get downhill. So I think just also having more guys that can beat someone off the dribble and just force that collapse, whether they're going to take the shot, whether they're going to get fouled at the line, or it's the rotation of a defense then opens somebody else up, and it doesn't always have to be a kick-out three either. And if you're open from three, sometimes you don't have to be the one to take that shot. You can drive that empty space. I know that some will argue, well, what if that ends up being a mid-range two, which a lot of people hate these days. I think if you're good at it, obviously and I would assume it was outside of the line of analytics, what they say about mid-range twos, but kind of big picture.
I feel like Terrence Shannon, sorry to cut you there, but
go for it.
I feel like Terrence Shannon, and he's talked about it a couple times, he should be a lethal mid-range guy. Like, I want to see that in his game a little more.
Yeah.
Especially with just how good he is at times, especially when he's on a heater, at making shots off the dribble. We see him pull up for three a lot and have success, and some of those are usually some of Illinois' biggest shots. Like, I think he should add a mid-range game, and I want to see that more because I feel like it's either settle for a three or out-of-control drive to the rim, all or nothing, looking for contact, and a lot of times that's successful. But I think that he could have some success if he added that to his game.
I agree. There was one that I saw him take against Marquette, and that was really probably the only one I can really think of within these first three games. It rimmed out. It was kind of a step in inside the arc, pull-up shot. It might have been within an ISO, which I would rather it be like a come off a ball screen and they're playing your drive, and then you have space to knock down that shot. But we'll see. I think even given the competition, which last note on this, and we got to catch a break to get Sean Bach on here, but Valpo, 337th on Ken Pom based on like 361, 362 D1 teams. They're based on what the Ken Pom rankings are, they're going to be the worst team that you've played so far this year or will play this year as things stand right now. Southern, 276. Western Illinois, 323.
Gauntlet.
You should blast all three of those teams, but that doesn't mean you can't work on your offense. Admittedly, I don't want to see you go out against Valpo and you chuck 43s. No. I'm not saying they're going to, and Brad mentions there, within that quote, he does bring up a point about playing with more pace, maybe doing more within transition, quick hitting offense. I think there's something to be said about that, but we'll see how it goes. We'll have to evaluate what this offense's identity continues to evolve into, if it does change here going forward before you dive back into the meat of that schedule. That will be interesting. If you want to weigh in, you can. We've had a number of you do so already on the U of I Atlanta Link text line, 217-359-2255. Hit us up. We will read some of those as we go along. Coming up next, Sean Bach, Hawkeye Insider, fill us in on his vantage point of Illinois and Iowa City coming up on Saturday, as well as what Fran McCaffrey has on his hands for this hoops season. We'll do that next. It is The Drive.
Local, personal, trusted. Hi, this is Ata Durakan with First Federal Savings Bank of Champaign-Urbana, and we've been serving Champaign County since 1908. Our institution is safe, strong, and stable. We operate on a foundation of responsible and sound practices, and you can rest easy knowing we're your bank. Rated 5-star superior by Bauer Financial Inc., fast, friendly, and local, with local loan decisions and underwriting. If you're not already banking with us, give us a try, and we think you'll love it here. First Federal Savings Bank, 356bank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender, NMLS 435120.
Hi, it's Stevie J. So I took my mom into Audubell, owned by Jeff Hanley, who owns 13 locations around central Illinois. She's had so much trouble hearing for so long. Audubell, Audibel, for hearing. And some of the new technologies, they've got AI now for some of these hearing aids, and they're virtually invisible. It's unbelievable, and it helped my mom. It helped her incredibly. We've been to other places. This is by far the best place I've ever been in for hearing help. Go to audibelteam.com. That's Audibel. If you want more information about Audubell and how Jeff Hanley and his amazing culture and amazing team that they have, go to audibelteam.com. That's Audibel, audibelteam.com. You'll be so happy you found Audubell. Amazing work. They got a location in Champaign. Go to audibelteam.com. That's audibelteam.com. When it comes to finding a reliable vehicle, look no further than Sarah Champaign, your trusted automotive destination. They carry a lineup of top brands, including Honda, BMW, Subaru, GMC, and Buick. And they're not just about cars, they're about people. Their team is dedicated to providing you with trustworthy service and dependable vehicles that fit your lifestyle. Experience the difference at Sarah Champaign. Visit Sarah, S-E-R-R-A, champaign.com.
Illini fans, taste what's special about Jets Pizza by ordering any of their specialty pizzas for $5 off. That's right, save $5 on all specialty pizzas like the barbecue chicken pizza, chicken grilled to perfection, premium mozzarella cheese, bacon, red onion, and BBQ sauce. All piled onto Jets' amazing crust made from dough they make fresh every day. There's also their super special all-meaty chicken bacon ranch and more, all $5 off. Make your day special and order a Jets specialty pizza for $5 off.
Fighting Illini football is back at Memorial Stadium for the final home game of the season on Saturday, November 25th, as they take on Northwestern in the battle for the Land of Lincoln Trophy. Bring the whole family to enjoy our family fun zone in Grange Grove with bounce houses, food trucks, balloon artists, and tailgating. See you at Memorial Stadium for Fighting Illini football's final home game against Northwestern on Saturday, November 25th. Get $15 tickets at fightingillini.com.
You moved into your new home using 2 men in a truck. The garage was clean. Then,
I love the new recliner. What are we going to do with this old one?
Put it in the garage for now.
over time, this cycle continued.
Garage for now. Put it in the garage for now. Put it in the garage for now. Put it in the garage for now.
It happens. You got junk. Call 2 Men in a Truck to get rid of all your junk. Residential or commercial, 2 Men in a Truck has a solution for your junk removal. Contact them at 2menchampaign.com.
2 Men in a Truck. By now, you've all heard the expression, when you turn the key and the car won't run, call 367-9481 for PDR Automotive. They are what's best for your truck or car. They are PDR. But who are they? They, the PDR staff, understand that a name is only as good as the people that represent it. The PDR staff has more than 335 years of combined automotive experience. Several employees now on staff for more than 25 years. PDR, more than just a name. Family owned and operated, now celebrating over 50 years in business.
Hey, could you tell me what aisle your car batteries are in?
Sure, I'll go grab one for you. Here's your battery. It might be expired, but oh well. Also, the brand isn't that great, but it should work for at least a year or two, maybe. Anyways, I went ahead and charged you for it, and here's the battery. Okay, have a great day.
What just happened?
Sometimes good things are hard to find, but they're worth the wait. Make the trip out to Interstate All Battery Center at 2504 North Mattis Avenue and get all of your battery needs taken care of by the trusted professionals. Give them a call today at 355-4855. Here's what somebody recently said at Pards in Urbana. I was there just a few minutes, and somebody came up and asked if I needed help. And they were incredible, helped me find the size of boot I needed, and then I bought a second pair too. Everything was friendly, everything was excellent. Visit Pards in Urbana, 206 North Maple, between Main and University in Urbana. It's Pards Western Shop since 1968. Or go online and visit pards.com, pards.com.
So when was the last time you saw a best deal guarantee?
You mean a promise that actually held up?
Right.
That some unknown online entity didn't want you to log in and download a code and then re-verify as you join some club?
Drives you nuts, I know.
And then once you purchase that set of steak knives...
Well, Dick Van Dyke Appliance World is a lot simpler. You find a verified great deal and they beat it. Just show them the deal you saw. A newspaper clipping or the online cart price will do, and then you're good.
At Dick Van Dyke Appliance World, it's one of those instances where you see a best deal guarantee and...
you get the best deal.
This is Dennis Rieken, chairman of Dick Van Dyke Appliance World. Our exclusive 10-year protection plan comes free with most appliance purchases. Whether it's a GE, Whirlpool, Frigidaire, Bosch, or any of our 30 brands, I guarantee we will beat any competitor's deal. Wow!
When you buy from us, you get the whole
Back on the drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Let's go back to the Tapman's Towing phone line. Let's get filled in on the Iowa Hawkeyes football squad. Big one over there in Iowa City between Illinois and Iowa on Saturday. Also want to talk some Iowa basketball, kind of get a preview of what Fran McCaffrey's squad is looking like so far and how we should view them going into the future. So let's catch up with Sean Bach, Hawkeye Insider, joining us now on the Tapman's Towing phone line. Sean, how you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Derek, appreciate having me on. It's good. It's a good part of the year. I'm pretty busy with football, obviously, and then basketball's coming around. So it's no better time, I guess, to cover college sports.
Yeah, no doubt. And we don't have to ask you about, is Brian Ferentz going to be there next year? I guess that is something that's off your plate. We don't got to worry about that.
Yeah, that was getting old for a bit. That was getting pretty old for a bit. I mean, because it was pretty close off season for him to leave on his own terms, and obviously then those new contract amendments came out, and that just added a whole new deal to it. And the athletic director that was the one that put together those contract amendments ended up leaving, and the new one booted Ferentz out. So it's been it's kind of nice to have that over with.
Well, Sean, despite some offensive struggles, obviously some injuries on the offensive side, we'll talk about a huge one on defense as well. This Hawkeye squad is ranked within the top 20 in the country. They're 8-2. They've had a really good year on the whole. What's allowed them, despite their struggles on offense, to be in this position right now? That still, they could be a 10-win football team if they went out.
Yeah, I mean, defense and special teams have been huge. We'll start with special teams. Tory Taylor, obviously, has been one of the, if not the best punter in the country this season. And you look at his punt totals, and obviously he's punted way more than a lot of other punters. So you'll see that yards go up more. But you have to look at the yards per punt. I mean, he's putting it. I think he's at like 47.6 yards per punt or something like that, and that's fifth in the country. That's especially impressive when you consider that he has probably punted the ball 20 or 25 more times than the punter that's right behind him. So he in this year it's kind of been key for him. It felt like last year he was more so trying to put the ball inside the 5-yard line or trying to pin the opponent deep. But this year he just seems more poised and more like, okay, I'm going to try and get 15 and not try and make the home run punt every time. And he's also got a couple of really good gunners, too. I mean, Cooper DeJean, you'll hear that name a lot, obviously not playing this week, but Cooper's probably one of the best gunners in the country when it comes to fielding down those punts and, being able to get them before they land into the end zone. I think Taylor has about like 27 or 28 punts inside the 20-yard line this year, which is really good. And he's had a number of games with punts of over 50 yards. So he's really delivered, and that set up the Iowa defense too, because it kind of feels like when the Iowa special teams unit gets a nice punt or gets something off, then the defense kind of seems to be motivated by that to, finish the job. And there were a lot of question marks going into this year with the defense. I mean, losing guys like Kayvon Merriweather, Riley Moss in the secondary. But the biggest question was losing the two linebackers, Jack Campbell and Seth Benson, guys that were probably Kirk Ferentz's most consistent linebacker corps since Chad Greenway and Abdul Hodge back in 2002. And, you know, Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson, a Virginia transfer, they've just stepped up and, you know, delivered for Iowa. It was a little shaky at first, but just to see the emergence of those two. Higgins is one of Iowa's leading tacklers, one of the leading tacklers in the Big Ten, I believe. And then Nick Jackson, the Virginia transfer, was a major get for Iowa in the offseason. Iowa beat out the likes of LSU, Oklahoma, and I think Auburn was involved at one time too. And, you know, getting him out of Virginia and then stealing him from some of those SEC schools, and to see his aggression just improve and how he's able to play in coverage has been a really big bright spot for Iowa. And, you know, taking into account the defensive line, they're without Noah Shannon, their top defensive tackle coming into the year. He got caught up in the gambling probe that went down during the offseason, and Iowa's defensive line doesn't have the sack numbers that they would have liked, but they've been able to get to the quarterback. They've been able to, you know, cause that pressure to get the defense, you know, to stop the imposing offense from, you know, really piecing long drives together. They've been pretty solid against the run and the pass this year. So, I mean, those two things are, special teams and defense are, you know, Iowa's calling card. The complementary football thing is something that the Iowa football program holds, you know, very, you know, high in the highest regard, because it's true with this team, especially with how bad the offense has been. And, you know, to see that against Rutgers last week, the offensive performance improve, it was a major step in the right direction.
On that note, Sean, with Deacon Hill being back there, he's had some rougher performances, but it looked like, as far as just looking at the box score personally, I know you saw it in finer detail. What changed for him in that performance, and what has maybe been the maturation process as he's gone along?
Yeah, he just looks more comfortable back there, and I think a big reason for that was the offensive line. Kirk Ferentz said that the offensive line is probably the best performance of the season. You look at the Pro Football Focus grades, and that would back that up. And I mean, Derek, if you've paid attention somewhat to Iowa football over the last year, two, maybe even 3 years, outside of Tyler Linderbaum, there's been a lot of inconsistency up front for Iowa. Mm-hmm. And when you think about Iowa, the big thing you think about is offensive line play and consistency up front. Well, that really hasn't been there for Iowa in the last couple of years at a consistent, you know, manner. And, you know, I think part of that has to do with switching offensive line coaches. Obviously, injuries have played a big role too, but Iowa's offensive line was fantastic against Rutgers, and they're really hoping that they've had their moments throughout the year, but that game against Rutgers was a major plus for this team, and, you know, everything just kind of seemed to click. So that's the big thing with Deacon. When he gets time in the pocket, he can be effective. He likes to let it loose. I mean, when you're 6'3", 265 pounds, or however, you know, big he is, you're going to want to throw the football a little bit to, you know, kind of show off that strength. So he can certainly throw the football. Had a couple nice completions to the wide receivers, which was a step in the right direction. I mean, getting Caleb Brown the ball was huge, because a big talking point all year has been, you know, Caleb's probably the most dynamic wide receiver in Iowa's room, but he just really hasn't gotten the reps or gotten the snaps. And the Hawkeyes kind of seemed to make it a point to get him the football on Saturday against Rutgers. So that was critical. And obviously losing those tight ends too, Luke Lachey and Eric All, that has hurt this Iowa offense. But, you know, Addison Ostrenga has just stepped up and been, you know, just what Iowa needs. I think he had about 8 catches on 8 targets last week for about 50 yards. So not a ton of yards, but just a reliable guy that can move the chains a little bit. So that's kind of the story of the passing game. I mean, for Iowa, it starts with running the football. And, you know, if Iowa can, you know, get the run game going, establish that can set up the pass, and that could, you know, lead to success for this team.
Sean, in this matchup in particular, Johnny Newton, Keith Randolph up front for the Illini. So that's something the Illini fans obviously feel pretty well about. The secondary has been very gettable, but maybe it's not something that Iowa's looking to do is take a lot of deep shots or just feed their wide receivers a bunch. So how do you kind of see that in terms of what maybe the game plan would be. Do you think Iowa can take advantage of a secondary that's been leaky, or is it something that is probably more so the running game and the tight ends, which year after year you may not even know the names, like, oh, whoever's lining up at tight end's probably getting the ball, like you said, 8 times and going to be productive.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're more optimistic about letting it loose a little bit, especially given that Illinois secondary, like you said, is pretty spotty. So I mean, for Iowa, it's going to start with running the football and getting the ball to the tight end. But I think the fact that this Rutgers game is what Iowa is coming off of, I think they feel like they might have a little more confidence to throw the football a little bit, especially seeing what they did last week. I mean, that was Iowa's highest yard total of the season, and they put up 22 points. And, I mean, I know yards on offense is kind of a overrated stat when it comes to judging points, depending on, situations and stuff, but they had 397 against Western Michigan, and they scored 51 points. So I mean, take with that what you will, but I think they just seem to be more confident offensively. A big thing with Iowa football is practice. Like, if you practice well, you're going to play. I know that sounds stupid and sounds like cliche, but I mean, they really, really believe in that. And the last couple of weeks, the talk has just been that practice on offense has just been more flowing, just like more comfort, just everything seems to be clicking a little bit better. And, that can translate on Saturday against Illinois. I think the Illini are going to have their hands full. But, I'll believe it when I see it. 2 games in a row, we'll have to see.
Sean, one more on the football side. You mentioned it already, Cooper DeJean being out, one of the top corners in college football, obviously a playmaker in special teams as well. Illinois fans are buzzing after the fact that John Paddock threw for 500 yards, and a lot of people hoping that he's going to get the start again. And obviously Isaiah Williams has been one of the most productive receivers in the league. So what is it going to look like with the secondary making up for that absence and Iowa's ability to go up against a passing game that's been able to make some things happen of late?
Yeah, that's gonna be one of the big stories. I mean, luckily for Iowa, Jamari Harris is a veteran guy, Montini grad. He's a veteran guy in the secondary, and he's kind of picked it up a little bit recently. Obviously, opposite of Cooper, he's probably gotten more shots because teams can be sometimes afraid to throw to Cooper's side of the ball given his playmaking ability. So, I mean, Jamari's a name to know for sure. And then Iowa's going to have redshirt freshman Deshaun Lee step up at that cornerback spot opposite of Harris. And Deshaun Lee, I mean, he was Iowa's starting cornerback opposite of DeJean earlier in the season when Harris was serving his suspension for his involvement in the gambling probe. And, Lee, I thought, did a really good job. I mean, they were kind of trying to pick on him a little bit because this was his first starting experience. But he's kind of one of those classic Phil Parker, Michigan defensive backs that seem to really thrive in Iowa's system. And Lee, I mean, stepped up, had a couple big pass deflections against Iowa State, I believe, and, had a couple solid games, but then got injured and wasn't able to fully come back for a few weeks. And then, he's back, been on special teams, and now this is his opportunity to shine because, I mean, Illinois probably is if you look at the last week especially, Illinois is probably the best passing offense that Iowa will face this year. And it kind of feels like one of those games where Phil Parker is really going to have to come up with something sort of like a Phil Parker masterclass in a way. He's really going to have to find a way to scheme this Illinois team. And, without Cooper there, it's going to be a little tougher. But, I think Iowa feels pretty confident in Deshaun Lee that he can step up and take on that role. But I would not be surprised, especially if John Paddock is starting, to see Illinois kind of challenge Lee early in the game. Maybe take a couple deep shots downfield.
A couple more minutes with Sean Bach, Hawkeye Insider. You can follow him on Twitter at sbach247. Want to ask you about the hoops side. We saw Iowa battle against Creighton, ultimately fell in that game, a high-scoring affair, which I don't think that surprises anybody. But just kind of want to get your feel on Fran McCaffrey's squad this year. They lose Chris Murray, a first-round pick. They also lose Philip Abracha, who ended up being a pretty darn good player for them last year as well. So new faces in that front court. Iowa's averaging right now 97 a game. I know it's early, but Is this going to be another year where they just put up a bunch of points? And I personally, when I was asked about it, I thought they were maybe a team that was getting slept on a little bit because I think that you can always trust Fran to have a productive offense, and Carver Hawkeye is a tough place to go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that Creighton game, I think, gave people a lot more optimism about this team. And, you know, Iowa really had a chance to win that game in certain moments, or at least, you know, kind of stick around a little longer because they were, I know they were tied at halftime, but Creighton started to pull away when they were hitting. I think they started out the second half like 4 from 3, and Iowa was kind of trading 2s for 3s with them. So, I mean, they had a chance to win that game, and that's especially impressive considering what Creighton can do. Because when Creighton's really going, man, those guys are something else with their ability to shoot the basketball. But yeah, I mean, I think with losing Chris Murray is obviously huge, but I think Iowa feels like they have 3 or 4 guys that can really pick up the scoring slack. They kind of see themselves as a more balanced group this year. Well, it's felt like in previous years they've kind of leaned on the guys like Luka Garza, the Murray twins, and even Joe Wieskamp at times to handle a lot of the scoring load. This year they seem to be a little more balanced. And Ben Krikke was the one, the Valpo transfer. He was the one that had a great game against Creighton, but problem with playing against Creighton, I mean, all of Krikke's shots were inside the arc, a lot of mid-ranges that he ended up draining, but Creighton was hitting 3s on the opposite end. So that's something that's not going to be sustainable, especially against a team like Creighton. But they just love how Ben Krikke's able to, you know, play with the basketball and able to, you know, kind of be elusive off the dribble a lot more than Phil Verbracha was, because Phil was, you know, more of just I'm going to put my back to the basket, or I'm going to get a play off an offensive rebound and put it back up. And I mean, that's definitely valuable, and he played bigger than he was, but Krikke is just this natural fit for Iowa on the offensive end that they feel like can really help guys like Peyton Sandfort, Patrick McCaffrey, and Tony Perkins. But yeah, I mean, starting lineup has been solid. They've had their moments. I mean, I think you look back at that Creighton game, if Peyton Sandfort was healthy, I think Iowa probably would have made it a little bit of a closer game because they needed Peyton's three-point shooting. But honestly, I think the story of the season so far has been this freshman group. I mean, there's 2 guys from the state of Illinois, Owen Freeman, Brock Hardy. I know Illinois was recruiting Owen a bit. I think they were kicking around with Brock later on in the process. But those guys, and Price Sandfort out of Iowa and Laji Dembele out of New Jersey, those guys have been really solid in the early going. We're a little tense against Creighton to start out, but I think they logged a total of like 46 minutes amongst the 4 of them against Creighton, which, I mean, you're playing in Omaha. Creighton's a pretty crazy environment. They love their basketball out there, and this freshman group, I mean, Owen Freeman was giving Ryan Kalkbrenner the business at times, and Kalkbrenner is one of the top big men in the country, and, you know, Owen was kind of toughing him up a little bit. Kalkbrenner got his too, but Owen looked really good out there, and he's just such a skilled big man, and there's just such a high ceiling with him. Brock's going to be fun to watch. I mean, obviously the size component's going to hurt him at times, but the things that he can do with the basketball and just the pace he plays, that's really impressive. Dembele is a little more offensively skilled than I think a lot of people imagine early in the early process. I mean, he hit 2 3-pointers against Creighton. And then Price Sandfort's kind of similar to his older brother, but he can do more off the dribble and, you know, be a little more elusive with the basketball. But the one thing that stands out about those 4 guys is they just seem to be mature. Like, they just don't seem to be scared. They, you know, come out, attack, and, you know, if you can have a team with a lot of depth and, you know, not a big drop-off from the starting group to the bench, that's going to be so crucial down the stretch, you know, especially once you get to Big Ten play. You don't have to rely on your starters nonstop like, you know, some of these teams that don't have those benches. So, you know, the expectations, I think they rose pretty drastically after that game for a lot of people. I always kind of viewed them as their ceiling as like an 8 or 9 seed in the NCAA tournament, kind of like last year. But, I mean, hey, if they can kind of play consistently and stay healthy, I think there's a chance that they could, you know, potentially be top 5 in the Big Ten, maybe, you know, top 6, and potentially compete for like a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, based on right now, it looks to be a lot of fluidity there in the middle of that Big Ten, even maybe in the upper tier behind Purdue. Sean Bach, Hawkeye Insider, enjoyed catching up with you, man. Great stuff. And as Illinois has 2 late season matchups with the Hawkeyes on the hardwood, we'll have to catch up with you again then. So appreciate your time today and look forward to talking down the road.
Yeah, for sure, Derek. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks. Sean Bach, Hawkeye Insider, joining us on the Tapman's Towing phone line. We're due for a break. Hear from Brett Bielema here in a little bit, and we'll talk some more basketball before we get out of here. This is The Drive.
You're listening to WSJK ESPN 93.5 Tuscola, Champaign-Urbana, your home for the St. Louis Cardinals. Here's the deal. When you combine State Farm home and auto insurance, you save an average of $889. State Farm agent Kurt Lenschow is ready to help you combine home and auto and save right here in Champaign-Urbana. Call 352-1411 today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Average annual per household savings based on a 2019 national survey by State Farm of new policyholders who reported savings by switching to State Farm. You have money laying all around your house. You just don't know it. And no, I don't mean selling your great-grandma's good china. I mean all the old metal items you don't want to use or get rid of. Don't pay someone to haul it away. Bring it into Max Twin City Recycling and get paid to have it taken off your hands. They love new customers and are more than willing to walk you through their process step by step. Come check them out at 2808 North Lincoln Avenue in Urbana.
Starting it over is what we do at Max Twin City Recycling.
Hey, Fighting Illini fans! D&D Advertising has the new 2023-2024 basketball schedules ready for pickup at these fine businesses.
Illinois Excavation Septic Concrete, Beast Mode Painting LLC, SK Exteriors, George Mallet Company Garage Door, Twin City Industrial Rubber Hose, Studio Nails, Champaign Eye Professionals, Inspire Your Wedding and Events, Express Employment Professionals, Thomas Mamer Attorneys at Law, Oak Creek Outdoor Service Tree and Landscaping, The Dentist Gray, Yallowly and Black DDS, Armor Shield Concrete Coatings, Latitude Apartments, Campus Culinary Solutions, New Era Cannabis Products and Accessories, Ray's Heating and AC, Burner Plumbing, Horn Installation, Allstate Insurance, William Abel. Please patronize these fine businesses as they are an asset to the community.
D&D Advertising Enterprises is not licensed, affiliated with, or endorsed by any university, sports institution, or program unless specifically stated in writing. No proceeds from any of the funds collected for your ad will be given to any educational institution or sports team. We are not responsible for any schedule changes made after printing.
The hammering, the sawing, the drilling, all the sounds of the workplace from music to our ears. You can be a part of construction projects large and small as a Carpenters Local 243 member. Learn to excel with apprentice and journeyman training. Members enjoy all the benefits this internationally recognized union has to offer. It's a life-changing decision. Join the Local 243 family tradition. Contact Carpenters Local 243 at 217-356-5463.
Busey Bank, leading the way to your financial wellness. No matter where your financial journey begins, Pathways banking options at Busey are designed with your goals in mind. Busey Bank, building strong financial futures, one family, one street, one city at a time. Proud to be the official bank of the Fighting Illini. Member FDIC.
Hello again, everyone. Let's check weather for East Central Illinois. Champaign-Urbana this Saturday. Pleasant spell of weather continuing on for the day today. Changes ahead for the day tomorrow. A little more typical seasonal feel over the weekend. A pretty good rain system will come up here for early to mid next week. As a matter of fact, the second half of next week, a little hint of at least the feel of early winter across the area, but nothing worse than that. Today, partly cloudy, breezy, mild. Get out and enjoy it. Comes to an end for the day today relative to the mild weather of mid-November. 67 the forecast high. Normal high this time of the year at 50. South wind on the increase at 12 to 24 and gusty. Mostly cloudy tonight. Little rain in spots well after midnight. Low down to 51. South wind for the day tomorrow. Much cooler. A little rain in the morning. Some afternoon sun and a high of 56 degrees on a northwest to north wind. Clearing off and 27 tomorrow night. Weekend forecast. Fair amount of sunshine. 51 Saturday. Sunday high 54. Widespread rains late Monday and Tuesday. Won't get out of the 40s for high temperatures by mid next week. For Stevie J Broadcasting, I'm meteorologist Greg Solgay.
It is The Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Good catching up with Sean Bach to talk Illinois, Iowa, as well as the Iowa Hawkeyes basketball squad. I want to get your thoughts on that a little bit, Kyle. Number one, actually, side note, it's pretty awesome, although we're not currently watching it. There's been hoops on all day.
Oh, there has. We could get some on here for the second hour because we're getting around that time, feast week.
Yes.
I can't wait to watch the Maui Invitational. Unfortunately, it's not taking place on Maui this year, still over in Hawaii. But what a field that is next week.
You've got Kansas, Marquette, Tennessee.
Kansas, Marquette, Tennessee, Purdue.
Oh, and Purdue. Wow.
You also, I think...
UCLA, I believe, is in it.
I believe UCLA. Syracuse is not very good at this point in time, but they're in it. Couple other teams I'm trying to remember that aren't slouches.
Let me get this pulled up here. Just the appetizer, just the forefront of hoops on all day long from about 11 a.m., noon, all the way through the day is – I love this time of year. It's awesome. It's a lot better when you maybe are on break as you're about to be as far as school goes, or if you don't have a – I would have been okay with staying on the couch to watch the end of St. John's in North Texas, which looked like it was a thriller. St. John's pulled out a 1-point win of that one.
Gonzaga is the other one that's in the field.
Oh, yeah.
Along with Chaminade.
Just Gonzaga.
So it's Chaminade, Gonzaga, Kansas, Marquette, Purdue, Syracuse, Tennessee, UCLA. That is your Maui Invitational field this year.
It's incredible. Wait. That's awesome. I thoroughly love it. There's a lot of complaints, and I can go on a tangent here, Kyle. I know we're going to play some Brett Bielema and get you further clarity. I guess we're going to call it that. Further context on what Brett Bielema is thinking as far as his quarterback situation. It would be clarity maybe in the opposite way. If people are like, oh, did you guys hear Luke Altmaier is the quarterback? It does not seem that has been announced firmly, because it has not, as far as Brett being asked about that in follow-up questions by Joey Wagner today at Media Day. We'll get you the full clip here, but I don't even know where I was going to go.
Something on basketball, something on Maui.
Maui. I don't know. I love it. It slipped my mind. I was reading the text and it completely slipped my mind.
I won't argue with that.
I did want to ask you, as far as Iowa goes, what do you think about Iowa? Did you get a chance to see any of the Creighton game? Probably not, because it was the same night as the Illinois Marquette.
No, it was the same night as Illinois Marquette, and then when I got back from the game, I had my focus on that Kansas-Kentucky second half, so I didn't get to see it.
Yep.
But it looked like scoring was happening quite often in that game.
Yeah, no surprise. Oh, I know where I was going. So there's a narrative built out there. College basketball is taking criticism for not having a big opening night. You know that it happens, obviously, in professional leagues where...
Just the opening week in general.
Yeah, the opening week in general, which is fair. I mean, there were a couple of games. No, I'm not considering who Georgia played somebody in a high major game, but that's hardly even a high major
Oregon,
game.
I think.
Georgia and Oregon.
Baylor and Auburn is one that I remember on the second night of the season that was okay. I think USC and Kansas State played on opening night. That was the only ranked team that played another high major.
Do you have a problem with it? Like, personally, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I get it. I get you could make a grand entrance with your first night, and maybe the Champions Classic should be opening night instead of...
Used to be.
I guess you're right.
I think it used to be the second night of the year, maybe, because I think it usually starts on a Monday, and that's always on Tuesday. But it was right there. That was the first game for all those teams.
Right. So I could see it in that sense, and I understand, also, I think there's a valid point to say, hey, some coaches are afraid of getting beat on that night and having it, not wanting to take that loss, not wanting to take some bad PR on the first night and what have you. But personally for me, I'm like, hey, do you not remember that we're literally a week away, from the opener, and within 1 week, you're playing the Champions Classic, you're playing the Gavitt games, you're then another week removed from Feast Week, which is, I think it's the grand entrance of college basketball. as far as if you're a casual fan or even less, I don't know, if you're someone that doesn't watch it religiously, which I personally can't relate to that because I watch obviously for my job, but I would be doing it anyway. That's high-level basketball all day long on a number of venues, Maui, Battle for Atlantis. I know, obviously, the Phil Knight thing, is that still going this year? I don't know if they're doing that again, but they've had that in recent years, which have been.
But they've got a bunch of these tournaments.
There's always, yeah. I mean, last year there's
a tournament in the Bahamas.
The Continental Tire out in Vegas was a huge deal last year for Illinois, and
by the way, I was looking through all the little events. They're having that again this year, but one of the games on Friday night is on ESPN Plus for that event. It's St. Mary's and somebody, which is like, wow. After last year's field and being on ESPN, and now we're going to ESPN Plus for the main event.
At least that wasn't last year.
Yeah.
Hey, Illinois and UCLA.
Imagine the outrage
on ESPN Plus.
That would have been awful.
Which I have ESPN Plus. I've got Amazon Prime. I've got a lot of these different things.
I got Peacock and Prime. I don't have ESPN Plus.
What stinks, though, even if you have it, the navigation to want to change the channel, like if there's the media timeout, to exit the app and then go into another app and watch a different, to watch Amazon Prime tonight, which a lot of people will for Bengals and Ravens. If there's a commercial break, it's hard to transition to another channel unless you got someone say, hey, then get 2 TVs in your living room, which take that up with my wife, not me. But okay, I'll just feed you the question. Do you have a problem with not opening with a huge matchup or huge event on the first night?
A little bit. You look through, and it's not just opening night. It's really like the whole week in general. I know once you got to Friday, you had Duke, Arizona, you had Tennessee, Wisconsin. You had
Friday,
some
Duke,
games.
Arizona.
You got to Friday and you had a couple, which is good. But you look at Monday, and it's every single highly ranked team is playing a team 321st in Ken Palm that they beat by 38. There's room for those games in the schedule. I'm not saying every game in non-conference. You shouldn't. I mean, those bye games are really important for these low major teams. I'm not saying get rid of those. Those can be in the schedule. But I'd love to just see some of these teams challenge themselves and play a high major team during the first 1 or 2 games of the year. I'd love to see the Champions Classic move back to be opening night 1 or 2. Because that's what it used to be, I want to say, as soon as 3-4 years ago. The thing is it's the first game for everybody. It's not. I'm not asking you to go play a team that's played 2 games and you've played 0 and make that, or whatever it is. It's night 1 for everybody. I think maybe the thing that you can try to do, we saw it a little bit this year with some lower level games, is just some neutral site games on the first couple nights. You saw USC, Kansas State played in Las Vegas. Baylor and Auburn played at that Sanford Pentagon in South Dakota, I think.
That's right. Yep.
I can understand, okay, I don't want to bring my guys into Cameron Indoor on opening night to play a road game. I get it. I get that. But maybe some of these neutral sites, the Champions Classic, some of these cool locations. Lindy brought up on the text line that aircraft carrier game, which they've done plenty of times, and I want to say that's either been opening night or the second game of each team's season when they've done that game. I just would love to see these top teams, especially your big-time Kansases and your top 5, top 10 teams, challenge yourself a little bit, give us a juicy game, then schedule 3 cupcakes, then get to Feast Week in your tournament. But I'd love to see, a few more. I just there was just barely anything the first 4 nights of the year this year.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. One counterpoint that I would make to this is that there could be a situation where, so in the NBA, you've got 3 weeks of preseason games.
Yep.
And NFL, you have it as well. I know the starters don't. Some don't play at all. Some play sparingly. And you almost go through unwatchable football for 3 weeks that they're getting up to speed and getting in tune. And you don't have that in college basketball. You got some people complaining, why is Illinois and Kansas an exhibition game and not one that counts? I know that Illinois fans wish that obviously was one that counts. And it was a very good, very entertaining, felt like a pretty high-level basketball game that if that was the opening night, no one would have any any worries about what that product was. But I think that there are circumstances where maybe a couple of bye games under a team's belt leads to a better performance. I wouldn't want the Champions Classic to be a situation where it is clear that all 4 teams need some tune-up before playing, but maybe that's a weak answer. Maybe that's a...
I get it. I just think all these teams are playing secret scrimmages and exhibition games now.
You're right.
So you're allowed 2 exhibition games, whether it's 2 real exhibition games in your stadium or a secret scrimmage mixed in there. You're allowed 2, right?
Yep.
Schedule 2 and then play a good team on opening night.
It's true.
I don't know. It'd be cool if you're not going to get everybody. It's not you need those bye games are important for these smaller schools. So it's not going to be a situation where every good team is playing another, and you get like a slate of like 15 amazing matchups. But mix in like on opening night, you have 2 really good games in Vegas, and then on Tuesday night, the second night, the Champions Classic, and then Wednesday night, you played on the aircraft carrier or something like that, or like just these little events, these neutral site games where you have maybe 2-3 games, and you obviously maybe those schools are like, well, why do we have to play Kentucky on opening night when whoever it is playing
North Carolina,
Eastern Illinois,
yeah, East Carolina.
So I get that it'd be hard to maybe convince 6 teams to play high-level games the first couple nights and not everybody. But I just would love to see – I'd love to look at the start of a season and say, here's 2 great matchups on Monday. Here's 2 great matchups on Tuesday. Here's 2 great matchups on Wednesday. Here's maybe one more matchup on Thursday into the weekend. Like, the other thing was, like, Saturday had nothing going on. Like, I get – it's still college football season,
sure.
So I was occupied. But nothing on Saturday of the first week of the season. I would just like to see – a little bit more quality in the matchups on opening night and a couple nights to start the year. I think if you play exhibition games and you get those as your tune-ups and you really get ready to play, it's the regular season starting for both teams on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you play them at neutral sites so you're not asking a team to go into a just raucous environment at Duke or at Kentucky on opening night. I get that might be a little apprehensive of teams to do that, but yeah, just give me a few juicy ones.
Yeah, no, I think blowing it out for sure on opening night or opening week would make a lot of sense. To get I think sometimes this is framed to try to gather the national media, to try to gather, like, not the ones that cover college basketball. We know that Jeff Goodman and Seth Davis and those type of guys are paying attention. John Rothstein, if you care about what those guys have to say, those guys are going to be engaged with college basketball regardless. I think some people are trying to let's grab the headlines on ESPN, like on SportsCenter, for First Take to be talking about not that I could care less what. I couldn't care less. I always say that wrong. I couldn't care less what First Take is saying. I think that there are times, though, I can't relate to people that don't pay attention to college basketball until March. Like I just can't. I know I grew up in a college town. I'm right in the middle of Big Ten country. That's just not how I was wired. And I don't think it's going to change for college basketball, even if they come out with marquee matchups, because those other people, I don't trust that Mike Greenberg's going to know who the heck is on Duke and Kentucky going into the season or have enough to say about it one way or the other. So as far as that goes, maybe that's just kind of such a niche part of this thing. But on the other note of neutral sites, I think the Champions Classic does it really well. Number one, you got really good fan bases that draw. I didn't see the environment for the USC K-State game. There are situations where maybe you have a game in a neutral site that's so far away from both that you don't have a great. There could be some sleepy environments for some of these that I would almost rather just bite the bullet and say, all right, you go to that place one year, sure, and then you go to the other place the other year. I mean, that's how it goes. And if you're going into a tough environment and you lose, and it's a good team, it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt your resume. You're not losing anything. So I get that as well. Would there be a real letdown the following week, which you just get served up a whole bunch of great matchups, and then week 2 of college basketball, here is Alcorn State against the the other teams. But
then the teams that played 2 cupcakes on opening week while some of those marquee games are going, now you play some teams on week 2, you know?
And then
that's how you need it.
And then by week 3, you got all the
tournaments.
The Maui.
Yep.
So I think Kyle's figured it out. Let's make him the commish. Is there an NCAA commissioner or president? Is Mark Emmert, right? Or is Mark Emmert?
It used to be.
Oh,
not
it used
anymore.
to be. Yeah. Kyle's got it figured out.
A year ago, I think he's done.
But that's another thing about it is like these games, like in the NFL and the pro leagues, they're putting out the schedule for you. It's on these teams to compile their own schedule, make their own decisions on who they're going to play and how they're going to play them. And so, me personally, I can get through the. Trust me, do I like sitting back? Do I like sitting at State Farm Center on opening night in a game that Illinois is going to win by 35, and it's sleepy, and then they're down by 5 at the first media, and people are mad, and it's non-intriguing. There's nothing to get really. You're going to have some of those games though, regardless of where you position them. I do think there is something to be said because even though I provided the context of. You're going to have these other pro leagues that play the preseason, but Kyle does bring up a good point about exhibitions, and if you really are worried about it, go play 2 secret scrimmages against teams that will actually get you ready for those games. But, in the NFL, the first night on a Thursday, it's the defending Super Bowl champions, and like you had Pat Mahomes and the Lions in a really fun and competitive game, and first night of the NBA, if you like the NBA or you don't, there's usually 2 games on TNT, and you probably are going to see some combination of Steph Curry and LeBron and Jokic, and you're going to have a real draw there and something to really gear up for. I don't know who texted it in. I think it was Kyler that said was James Madison MSU not entertaining enough. I kid. It was. I
sure
very glad that game was there as far as something compelling because
how many people though had no interest in that game? I'm talking just college basketball fans even. How many people are like, oh, Michigan State, James Madison when they're going through opening night?
Oh, until you notice
and then there's
that it's
4 minutes left and it's close and it's like, oh, no, I'll watch this. Oh, that was great. James Madison won.
I mean, that's how I did it.
But no one would, that's how I did it. No one was intrigued by that beforehand. I'm not saying that wasn't a fun game to watch, but and that was the only one. Like all of opening week, I know some lower level teams like Louisville and all these teams went down to low major teams or whatever. But in terms of a high level opponent getting picked off by a mid major, that was it for opening week. So that's one game. That's not like, did you see how many teams lost on opening week? There was one, Michigan State. So I don't know. That doesn't satisfy me.
Yeah, and I just took this in a completely different direction of where we were going to go.
Can we take a quick break and then play Bielema?
Let's do it. Brett Bielema coming up next to talk about the quarterback situation and his final thoughts on Illinois and Iowa. This is The Drive.
Hi, I'm Tyler Weaver, president of Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery. It's time to come home to Carpet Weavers. We don't want you to just like your new floors. We want you to love them. From waterproof floors and carpet to furnitures and design advice, we've got a team of experts on your side. We'll get you the best price and the best quality products. And complete your home with furniture and accessories. Buy it all with free financing too. Come home to Carpet Weavers, where floors, furniture, and family meet.
From computer systems to brakes and tires too, at PDR, fixing cars is what they do. Remember, when you turn the key and the car won't run, call 367-9481 or use their dedicated text-only line at 383-0619. Additional information including repair quotes and online scheduling requests available from the website at pdrauto.com. Remember, they are what's best for your truck or car. They are PDR. Jeremiah 29:11 states, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." What a comfort we have in this passage as the Lord is telling Jeremiah, I care for you and will take care of you. If you are in despair and think you have no hope, pray to the Lord for guidance. See how your life can be changed and the lives of those around you. This message brought to you by the Blossom Basket Florist.
You've changed thousands of diapers, cut hundreds of crusts, played hours of peekaboo and duck, duck, goose, because you'd do anything for your kids. That's why it's important to protect them with life insurance from State Farm. The Brian Hansen State Farm Agency will make it easy and affordable to help protect your family no matter what the future holds. Because for the people you'd do anything for, life insurance could mean everything. Call me, State Farm Agent Brian Hansen in Champaign-Urbana today. For details, visit brianismyguy.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Fighting Illini football is back at Memorial Stadium for the final home game of the season on Saturday, November 25th as they take on Northwestern in the battle for the Land of Lincoln Trophy. Bring the whole family to enjoy our family fun zone in Grange Grove with bounce houses, food trucks, balloon artists, and tailgating. See you at Memorial Stadium for Fighting Illini football's final home game against Northwestern on Saturday, November 25th. Get $15 tickets at fightingillini.com.
Are you one of those guys out there tinting windows day in and day out, all different shades of black, and ready to put a little color in your life? Come work for us. At Aftershock, we're looking for a guy with experience in wrapping, whether it be window tinting, vinyl wrapping, anything of that sort, or somebody with just ambition that wants to show up to work and be proud of what they do. You know those wraps with Troy Lands on the back waving at you? That's our work. Call us, 833-DECAL-IT, or email office@aftershockdd.com. We want you.
Carl works every day to improve the health of community members across the region, and it would not be possible without team members like Dwayne Linton, a nationally certified nurse in the emergency department at Carl Foundation Hospital.
I work with a team of people who really care about what they do and are very flexible and adaptive in rapidly changing critical situations, and I would trust any of them at any time.
If you're looking for an opportunity to serve your community like Dwayne in a supportive environment, visit carl.org/careers.
Big game coming on Saturday. I think I told our guys, obviously, the last 2 weeks you've done well, right? Which you make this game a little bit bigger because of that. So excited to go on the road, see what we got. We've done some good things on the road this year and expect to continue forward. Really excited here the last 3 or 4 days to get so many guys, I think since Monday, nominated for national awards. I think one of the things that's really cool for me, I always say history repeats itself to our players, right? My first year at the University of Wisconsin as a head coach, I was able to get a Senior Bowl invite and hand it to Joe Thomas, who later that year became an Outland Trophy winner and a really high draft pick and went on to have a great career. Again, a couple years later, I was able to hand Gabe Creamy a Senior Bowl invite list, and he became the Outland Trophy winner and obviously went on to a first-round draft pick. And Johnny, to put himself in that position to be up for the Outland, I don't think I've had a defensive lineman nominated for that award. There's certain parameters they got to be in play. He's got to play inside the tackle and a certain number of reps. So just really excited for him. I know he came back to play really high-level football, and that's what he's done. He's just different than the rest I've ever been around, the way he plays it. So from an injury standpoint, with our guys going over there on Saturday, should be 100% for where we kind of thought we were going to be on Monday. Reggie has practiced well all week, hasn't had any issues, don't see him being a concern. At wide receiver, Pat Bryan, who left the game, got in there a little bit on Wednesday, practiced today, and expect him to be full go on Saturday. Obviously, that'll be something we'll figure out that day when we get there. Luke been cleared, I believe, since Tuesday afternoon. Have him in practice all week. It's been really good to see him back there. I think anytime you have two guys that play that position as well as they have is a positive thing. Defensively, Keith Randolph practiced Tuesday, Wednesday, backed off a little bit today, but he should be 100% on Saturday to go where we're at. So don't really expect any Caden Fagan, again, just an evaluation process, hasn't been able to practice with us yet this week, but we got a chance. I know he's not a veteran player, but a guy that I think, this game, he got recruited by them and all that goes into it. He's been excited to play all along, so we'll see where that plays out. But Reggie and Fidonzo have had a good week of practice. So that opened up for questions.
How do you kind of navigate your quarterback situation? Have you made any decisions like he'll start?
Obviously, the thing that we didn't know a week ago is whether or not Luke was going to be ready to play, and obviously he got nailed during the course of the week. He was ruled out going into the weekend. So our players have known and practiced all week with what our plan is, and again, I think anything that we can do when we go on the road to put our guys in the best position to have success, that guy will be under center.
I guess with the older guys that have maybe not practiced and you've been okay with them being cleared like late and they can play. Is Caden? I mean, he's got
I get it. The thing I have to be careful with Caden is the young man loves playing at the University of Illinois. And he went back in the game the other day, and obviously in a low red area, and physically just couldn't hang on the ball, right? So we got to pass all the things we have to pass to get him to be able to be out there. So that's the only element that probably will hold us back. We just got to make sure he can hang on the ball in traffic and contact and put himself in a position to be successful with all of us.
Coach, you've done a good job over your career here, picking all those, long road streaks you've knocked out, Wisconsin, different ones. Iowa goes back to 99.
99, 2000.
Right, so...
You know who the inside linebacker coach was at the University?
Yeah, I know it was you.
This handsome devil you got.
So, is there something to do? How have you been able to do that?
I think history is always good when you can teach it, right? Like, and I've tried to really impress on our guys. Like I said at the beginning of this press conference, right? Like, history repeats itself all over the place. And last year when we had those 3 games in a row, we made a big deal of that, right? And obviously we're able to do it. I asked very early on, right, when was the last time that Illinois had 2 victories in a row? Little did I know it was 99 and 2000. And I Googled a picture of Brett Bielema in 2000 and showed it to the guys and said this was the last time. So it's kind of fun for them. They embrace it. They hear a lot about it, right? So I just think that kids in today's world, they're so now oriented, right? Like they got cell phones, they got internet access, all this stuff. So anything that gives them perspective and history is really good. One of the reasons I love showing them different comments from great players, right? Football players. I show Kobe quite a bit. I'll show different NBA guys, tennis stars, like guys that are great players in my era or that I grew up with, to teach them that, because when they're going to be in that same scenario 20 years from now, they're going to talk about these players that they've watch right now, and their kids won't know who they're talking about, right? So you try to teach them a little bit of legacy.
You've coached 1,000 games since then. Do you ever any memory of that game over there?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Their best player, Cooper DeJean, went down with an injury. How do you think that affects the game?
Well, first, obviously been blessed to watch him really come onto the scene last year, and then I noticed this year when him and Johnny were both, I think, picked co-defensive MVPs, right, preseason, if I'm not mistaken, players of the year. Just really respect for his game. I've been, the part that I really enjoy as a head coach, I love watching players play, right, that truly are good, whether they're playing, obviously I don't love it on game day, but you watch and appreciate him on film, and he's such a dynamic player, and my guess is, being in that program, who he is, what he represents, he's probably a pretty phenomenal person, right? And you just hate to see anything along that lines. I think our guys always want to play against the best, and obviously he's got a year left, so how that all plays out will be determined, but unfortunate for him, and our prayers are with him.
But I'd rather just ask than not.
Yeah.
Would you share with us who you think you're going to start at quarterback on Saturday?
I think our guys have 100%, no doubt in their mind, what's going to start at center or quarterback. So I think the one part that really became clear to me as we begin to evolve with our players, right, they get really good at practicing what they do, right, and what we emphasize in practice, our guys go out and do very, very well. So I was clear and adamant about what we were going to do from Sunday on. What the outside world knows, it doesn't really matter to me, but what happens on Saturday is what matters most.
Right, you mentioned wide receiver in terms of injuries, but has Pat Bryant kind of recovered in a way that was surprising to you?
He, that play, he got rolled pretty good. If you watch it, the guy ranked on it pretty good, and he tried to come back in. So I knew he was going to be close. Tuesday, Sunday, Monday, we have the hyperbolic chamber or whatever it is that we get him in, and I know he's been trying like crazy to get ready for Tuesday. Tuesday we didn't feel comfortable. Wednesday he did, and today he did. But wide receiver is a different thing, bless his heart, Keith Randolph is doing everything he can, but it's a different position, So it's a wait and see. The good news is Ashton got his feet wet. He's had a lot of good work, but my guess is Pat Brown will be in there for that first series as much as he can handle.
There's a lot of pub about a quarterback, right? Do you take it differently? I mean, everyone wants to talk about a quarterback, but do you handle that differently than other positions? Even internally, talking with players and.
As far as what? What do you mean?
As far as who's going to start, who's going to play. Obviously, that gets all right.
Well, I think. Yeah, I think the quarterback position gets a lot of outside attention, right? But I really do probably treat it, I think, if you ask them. But I always do say this to quarterbacks, right? Like, even when I'm recruiting them, like, listen, I tell their parents, this position is very unique, right? Like, you, at times, get entirely too much credit and you get entirely too much blame. And because of that, I will always be the brunt. I don't care whatever quarterback I've had. He go out and have the greatest game of his life, I'll give him credit. If he has a game that's not so great, if you take in case in point, right? I've talked about how Luke's season literally changed after Penn State, right? He had a 4-interception game and really after that point forward to put up some unbelievably good numbers, right? So I really handled that moment with him. I made a point, I think, that week talking about how I called him on Saturday night before he went to bed because I wanted him to know he was our starting quarterback. I didn't share with that the outside world, right? But I wanted him to know that. So I would say Sunday I definitely had conversations with everybody involved. They knew directionally where we were going and what we were doing, and that hasn't wavered.
How have those conversations played out this week? Or how did those
play on Saturday?
With the way they defend the run, especially in the red zone, why one rushing touchdown? I mean, does that not to give away the game plan, but does that change your thinking on how to game plan for them?
I think anytime you're in a red area, which we've been very good at this year, we made a conscientious effort during the out of season and throughout the course of the year to be more efficient, and we've been able to accomplish that. I don't want to talk on what our plan is, like you said, but I think Iowa is who they are. They're very regimented in their schemes and what they do. They do change game plan wise on who they're playing, right? Like certain teams will be played differently, but I've been around this, seen this enough that like I have a pretty good understanding of what I think they're going to do to us in the red area. There's obviously a game plan installed, but we got to execute in those big moments, and obviously to be on the road is a big deal with the crowd noise.
But I know you mentioned Caden hasn't been able to practice this week. What for you internally? What's kind of your deadline to decide if you have him make that trip to Iowa or if you don't?
Yeah, well, getting down to just kind of the way we are. Even 2 weeks ago when we didn't take Reg, we met on Thursday and we're taking him on a trip with us, and then Friday he didn't feel great, so we pulled him off because we needed players at other positions. So case in point, like at Pat, we're intending for him to go. We think he's going to go. He's cleared to go. But if he gets over there and he can't, that made us take one more wide receiver. Does that make sense? Like, so 74 travel guys, they get 74 guys to go to the hotel. So at this time of the year, everybody's trying to get that spot. I would say if Caden can't go, he wouldn't be included in the trip.
We asked Aaron on Monday, but not you, about the conversations with Taz this week that you might have had. He seems adamant that he did not do that. So how do you handle that as a coach?
Well, the good news was the first thing I had to do was check and see if there's any further suspension, right? Because the rule by the law in this Big Ten conference, what happened and transpired on Saturday, he could be removed from further competition. I reached out on Monday, got final notification on Tuesday there'd be no further action, which means there probably wasn't a clarity on what it does. I'm going to believe my player, but that game overall was just getting, I don't think it needed to get to that point. They were chippy. That kid and him were getting into it all day long. Taz tends to bring the ire of a lot of officials against him, which I believe he's earned at certain times, right? But I think the great thing about Taz is he's ultra competitive. Every day is a learning experience, and hopefully that one was a big one.
You moved into your new home using 2 men in a truck. The garage was clean. Then,
I love the new recliner. What are we going to do with this old one?
Put it in the garage for now.
Over time, this cycle continued.
Garage for now, put it in the garage for now, put it in the garage for now, put it in the garage for now.
It happens. You got junk. Call 2 Men in a Truck to get rid of all your junk. Residential or commercial, 2 Men in a Truck has a solution for your junk removal. Contact them at 2menchampagne.com.
2 Men in a Truck.
Like every bank, there's a time every day when we stop making loans. But at Iroquois Federal, we never stop making a difference. Thanks to an amazing team of employees who give back to their local communities all over Central Illinois. From hospital boards and local school programs to Kiwanis and the United Way, Iroquois Federal employees donated more than 1,000 volunteer hours last year. And we'll do it again next year, because the only thing we like more than making a loan is making a difference. Iroquois Federal, still friendly, still local, still here. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
These days, you don't mind staying up a little late or waiting in line. These days, button-downs turn into t-shirts, and dinner consists of popcorn and a pretzel. These days are about singing and yelling and jumping. These days are game days. Game Day Spirit, where Fighting Illini fans shop.
Everybody needs insurance, and that's why I love Kyle Lewis at Insurance Providers Group. This is Jay Lehman, All-American linebacker. Kyle provides auto, life, health, and all kinds of commercial lines of insurance. They are my one-stop shop for all my insurance needs, and all my rental properties are insured by IPG. That's why you need to email Kyle at IPGINS.com. Kyle at IPGINS.com.
Welcome to Dick Van Dyke Appliance World.
Hi, I'm looking for a refrigerator.
When you buy from us, you get the whole store.
Oh, yeah, well, I just need a refrigerator. Don't need the whole store.
But you get it, the whole store.
My kitchen is only about this big.
You get me.
Hello.
All those delivery, installation, and service technicians in back.
Wow, all those people?
The Dick Van Dyke 5-10-year protection plan, which means in the unlikely event something goes wrong in the first 5 years, your repair cost is nothing.
Nothing?
10 years parts coverage on the major components.
Looks like I'm getting more than a refrigerator today. How much does this whole store cost?
Nothing. Come on. For real. We guarantee to beat any competitor's deal, all that other stuff we talked about, like our service tax.
And your 5-10-year protection plan?
All included.
I'm Dennis Freakin, chairman of Dick Van Dyke Appliance World. And when we say you get the whole store, we mean the whole store. Wow!
Dick Van Dyke Appliance World. When you buy from us, you get the whole store.
Back on the drive with Tane Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Derek Piper, Kyle Tosk, Brett Bielema. You just heard him speaking with the media today. What do you make, Kyle, of the quarterback situation? He was really clear about what he's going to do, correct?
He was very clear about it.
Not tell anybody. That's what he's going to do.
The people that reported that he announced Altmaier as the starter yesterday should be deleting their stuff, because I just didn't buy it yesterday based on that quote that he gave on Sirius XM. I buy it way less today. In fact, I'll go out on a limb. Not really a limb. I think a lot of people agree. 2:30 Saturday, I believe that John Paddock will be taking the field for the Illinois offense.
I believe that you are correct. That would be where I would put my chips as well if that was something to bet on. Anybody want to take any bets? Set the lines? I would not take any action because I do think it's going to be John Paddock as well. And if you want to try to decipher some of the things that Brett Bielema said, I think it's possible that maybe he left an Easter egg in there as far as what. Now, he didn't say it flat out. It's not clear, but for him in that clip to mention that Sunday he made his decision, he let it be known within his program what he planned to do. Then, obviously, he informed his team leading into practice this week. As far as we understand it, Luke Altmaier wasn't fully cleared until Tuesday. So if he made the decision Sunday, you could then maybe conclude that, all right, most likely he would be naming John Paddock the starter or having decided on that on Sunday if that's what he ultimately landed on.
Yep. I guess the counterpoint to that would be he could be pretty confident that Luke was going to get cleared based on the process that was going on, and you don't practice Monday. So, I mean, this is exactly what Brett wants. This is exactly what Brett wants. He wants Kirk Ferentz to be sitting there prepping for Illinois. Like I don't have no clue what's happening over there. We're going to prepare for both, and that's what Brett has done his whole career. When he did drop that little quote on Sirius XM yesterday, and the first thing I saw was he announced Luke as a starter. I'm like, okay, let me listen to what he said. There's no way he announced Luke as a starter on Wednesday. That's not how Brett operates. You could ask him about it. He's even done this during the season too with other guys where he said, I think we're going to have them this week, and then they're out. Yeah. So it's just he's trying to stir things up. He's trying to make it tough on however much you feel that actually gives you an advantage is up for debate, but that's just how Brett operates, and I kind of like it, honestly. I don't mind it.
It's smoke screens. Can it be can you get a little annoyed by it if you're trying to just know an answer? And you could maybe argue like, hey, how much is telling Iowa who your quarterback's going to be going to impact it? I mean, that's up for debate, and there are stylistic differences between Luke Altmaier and John Paddock. Luke's got more running dynamic to him, obviously. And look, I'm not sitting here pounding on the table being like, Brett should tell all of us and also Iowa what he's going to do, because that would be, letting go of his competitive advantage, hypothetically, by doing that. But could he have worded things a little bit differently in terms of the starter thing, or his line on, in my career, guys don't lose their starting spots to injury? He can say whatever he wants. Ultimately, that's what it is. And I'm not speaking badly on him or anything. He's doing what he wants to do. He's playing games with people. He's throwing smoke screens out there, and it's on us to survive the wait and then consume the game on Saturday, and we'll see. In the meantime, we can all have opinions on who we think he should start or who we think he will start. And I think, in my opinion, that's the same in both of those questions. I think he should start John Paddock. I think he will start John Paddock.
I think 99% of the fan base is in agreement that they would like to see John Paddock out there. It's a pretty consensus based on what I've seen.
It's interesting, though. Like, I get it. It was a abnormal performance against Indiana to see a 500-yard performance. But the narrative changed.
You know what's funny?
Before that game.
It did, but you know what's funny is somebody texted in last week when Lon was taking his weekly day off last week and asked the question basically along the lines, if Paddock goes out there and throws for like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, does he start? And we both kind of said, well, I think you actually kind of disagree. I said I think you we were kind of on the same page, I think, in that you probably – it was hard to say before the game, but we both kind of agreed, like, you probably stick with Luke in that situation, even if he's great. And then it happens even more than, like, the texter's imagination of what happened. Paddock even blew that out of the water with 507 yards and a heck of a play in overtime for the game-winning throw to Isaiah. And here we are the next week having the discussion of, Paddock went in there and was phenomenal. One of the better Illinois QB performances in the history of the football program in a single game. Not counting like what's on, what the stakes were and what the opponent was, but in terms of just numbers-wise.
Statistical,
one of the best performances the program has ever had at the QB position. And here we are sitting here, and I do think after seeing it, it's kind of changed my view of where last week I was like, well, Paddock could be great against Indiana, but I don't know. But then you watch what Paddock did, and it really did change my mind in terms of the fact that I just don't know how you pull that guy off the field.
I don't think you should. And it seemed like, and I think we even asked Jay about it the previous week going into Indiana, was like, would there be a situation where this is a quarterback controversy? And it seemed like the narrative was pretty consistent. No, Luke, when he's healthy, will be the starting quarterback in all likelihood. Now, of course, we had to see it for ourselves of what Paddock's performance was going to be. And until then, that's when the narrative shifted. And I fully agree with you. I think everyone that I've talked to, everybody that I know out there that's an Illinois fan, I read all the texts that we get on the U of I Atlantic League text line. Show me somebody that's saying Luke Altmyer should start. I haven't seen it. I honestly haven't. And that's not knocking him because he's played pretty good football for the most part over this last stretch. It just is what John Paddock has done. You're riding a heater right now. I know Kyle's too young to gamble, and if I'm at the blackjack table and I've won ridiculous hands, I've doubled down 5 times in a row and I've won all of them, I'm not going to get up and walk away. I'm not going to be like, let's go to another dealer. Let's change, whatever I got working right now. He's played great football. I'm interested to see how much of that translates against a really, really stout Iowa defense, because it is going to be pretty night and day. You go from arguably the worst, if not one of the worst defenses in the Big Ten now to one of the best.
Yeah, I think there is a scenario, too, where Paddock is the guy to start the game. He really struggles in the first half or in whatever it is, maybe turns it over. Luke Altmyer comes in the game, and especially with his running ability and that part of his game in a really low-scoring game where you just need one big play to maybe pull it out, I do think there is a scenario where you do bring Luke in the game. And it's just I don't necessarily think this is a situation where you, even as good as Paddock was, like with Luke cleared now, I don't think you let Paddock go out there and have a horrid day and just let him ride that out all 4 quarters. I think there is a situation where Luke comes in in the football game on Saturday. But obviously, you're going to give Paddock a little bit of leash. Just not one. Like we saw against Indiana, his first drive was not pretty. You're not going to go.